Evening all, Daniel Hand, RPG therapist, and now that we've got all of the doomsaying out of the way, we're finally able to talk about that single crucial fact of life that inspired and sustains this entire channel. RPGs are a bleeping awesome form of therapeutic intervention. When we sat through our basic training and reflected on all the ways we might be able to help our future clients, how many of us said to ourselves, do you know what? I'm going to follow in the footsteps of Rogers, Egan and Bowlby by putting on funny voices, rolling dice and talking about magic swords. Answer to that question? Not nearly enough of us. I mean, sure, we looked at things like play therapy, mostly as a taster for those of us who wanted to pursue that as a career, and we did modules on therapeutic roleplay, but the former is only ever looked at in terms of working with younger clients, and the latter is strictly limited to hypothetical, what would you do or say if... thought experiments. Which, sure, helpful, but not exactly what one would call exciting. I always say that RPG therapy is play therapy and therapeutic roleplay taken to their natural conclusions. Like play therapy, it uses less direct activities to help clients work around their issues without actually having to directly confront or relive them. And like therapeutic roleplay, it gives clients an opportunity to imagine various situations without having to face any of the risks associated with doing them in real life. The big difference is that RPG therapy is applicable to clients of all ages. I've worked with the whole spectrum of clients, from primary school boys right the way through to women in their later 18th years, and it need not be limited to real world scenarios. It turns out that talking about throwing a giant flaming hand at a forest dragon has similar therapeutic benefits to pondering what you would like to have said to a bully back in high school. The key strength of RPG therapy, the single principle that makes it such an exciting approach, is that it offers clients a means of exploring and challenging their presenting issues from a safe distance, or at arm's length, as I often say. The game gives the client something to do and to keep themselves grounded whilst they're recalling traumatic events, and the imaginative work lets them explore those overwhelming memories and emotions by dressing them up in different clothes so that they become easier to bear. The people who get the most out of RPG therapy will therefore be those who, for one reason or another, struggle to engage with what most of us would recognise as quote-unquote traditional therapy. They know they're struggling with something and they know that they need to do something about it, but actually talking about it is just too much for them. Either they find it too difficult to access or understand their emotions, and so spend most of a session squirming in their seat and saying, I don't know, or they're in danger of re-traumatizing themselves if they dwell too much on the subject in question. So after all that, how can an RPG offer such an arm's length approach to the therapeutic process? Long answer? Like, share, subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you're kept up to date with future videos. That's what this channel is all about. Short answer: by making everything somebody else's problem and letting them deal with it. As I've mentioned previously, as have many others before me, RPGs are essentially comprised of two things: the gameplay, so rules, mechanics and so on, and the storytelling, the narration, the roleplay, etc. Hence why it's a role-playing game rather than just a game or just roleplay. Now, the gameplay is helpful in its own way. It gives the client something to do with their hands, their surface level thinking, a bit like a fidget spinner. Dice in hand, character sheet in front of them, a framework of rules to dictate how the world works. Some clients will just benefit from that tangible, comforting focus to ground them in the room, rather than leaving them to get lost in all those traumatic thoughts. Now, this isn't rescuing. I know we have it drilled into us from day one not to rescue our clients. But it is giving a calming mechanism to those clients who need it. But it's in the roleplay, the story, that things get really interesting. We'll go into all of this in a lot more detail in future videos, because this is a super important issue, the crux of the entire intervention. But for today, we're going to stick with the basics. The fundamental process that underlies RPG therapy is what I've started to call the fictional frame. Most of us here will be familiar with the therapeutic frame, the logistics and boundaries that contain the therapy and make it a safe, productive environment for the client to explore and deal with their difficulties. Well, the fictional frame does the same thing: logistics, boundaries, practitioner-client relationship, but it does so by, as it says on the tin, fictionalizing the whole experience. The counselling room ceases to be a room and becomes an entire world. The working alliance remains and continues to be crucial to the therapy's outcome, but now that relationship expands to include a whole cast of inspirational characters. And the client's presenting issues can be seen in terms of some imagined narrative, as outlandish as you like, rather than as a tangible, real-world problem that might represent some sort of threat. By storifying the therapeutic process like this, everything becomes safer and more versatile. Suddenly you can talk about literally anything, and are able to use those outlandish scenarios to inform the therapy. And because none of what you're talking about is actually, real, the client knows that there's no danger of anything bad happening to them. This can be incredibly freeing for the client, whereas previously they might have approached their sessions with not a little trepidation, even fear. Now they can come to them in the knowledge that there's always that safety net, that arm's length between them and the topics they're discussing. Whatever issues they bring to the therapy, it doesn't matter. You're not talking about their experiences, you're talking about the character's experiences. They don't have to relive the emotions of a traumatic event. Instead, they can conjecture hypothetically on what that character might be feeling in a similar but different event. There'll be plenty of pensiveness and introspection, sure, but there'll also be fun and excitement. There's talking, but there's also dice rolling. The magic of the fictional frame is that it transforms the therapeutic setting into a therapeutic world, with all of the possibilities and fun that entails. This is all founded upon recognised therapeutic or psychological principles like transference, projection, trait identification, parasocial relationships, and many others. And it all comes together in this immaculate protective bubble that makes the whole process so much easier and safer for the client to engage with. It's beautiful. Of course, the same standard disclaimer applies here as to all therapeutic modalities. RPG therapy cannot and will not be appropriate for every client under the sun. Some will immediately engage with the idea of disappearing into their imagination and using it to tackle their difficulties. Others will look at you like you've lost your mind if you ask them if they'd like to pretend to be an assistant pig keeper and put on some outlandish accent. But for the clients it is appropriate for, RPG therapy is hairs standing up on the back of your neck exciting. Once you bring the game and its world into the process, everything becomes so much easier. That's why RPG therapy really needs to be better recognised among our practitioner colleagues. That's why RPGs are worth persevering with in spite of all of the difficulties highlighted in previous videos. And that's what we're going to spend the rest of our time focusing on as this channel moves forward. My book, Role-Playing Games and Psychotherapy, A Practitioner's Guide, is available wherever you get your reading material. If you're interested in becoming an RPG therapist, that's a great place to start, link below. You can also sign up for my monthly-ish RPG therapy newsletter, Handwriting, again, link below. And if you'd like to get in touch with me, either with thoughts on the channel, with a view to getting some RPG therapy training, or even if you're a prospective client looking to start therapy, you can find me at my website, monomythcounselling.co.uk. I'd love to hear from you. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. As usual, if you wouldn't mind doing the whole like, share, subscribe business, I'd really appreciate it. If you have any questions, please pop them down in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. So take it easy, have a good one. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Cheers.